Good evening, everyone. So I'm Sarah, and I'm your MC and moderator for tonight's session. So there's been a lot of excitement about blockchain applications across a range of industries. And today we're really excited to be holding Electrify's first live AMA session, where Julius and Martin will be sharing more about how Electrify will contribute to advancing blockchain technology in the energy sector. So Julius and Martin are the bright minds behind Electrify, and both of them have extensive experience in the energy sector before they embarked on this exciting adventure. Electrify, which started in March 2017, also was the recent winner at the Block Show Asia, which is a startup competition for showcasing the most groundbreaking blockchain solutions. So before I pass over the time to Martin, tonight's program will actually be divided into two parts. So we'll first have Martin to give a quick presentation and overview of what Electrify is, whereas the second part will be a live AMA session. There's a slight change in the program, so we'll go straight into AMA right after Martin gives the presentation. Okay, and now I'll pass on the time to Martin.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Could you hit the lights for me, please? Thank you. Okay, hi guys. It's me again. So what I'm going to do is run you through, very simply, a very quick presentation about what Electrify as a business is, where we're going, and what exactly we're trying to do with the ICO. And I've got to move a little bit over here. Oh, bright light. Thank you. Are we good? Thank you very much. So guys, can we have our slides? Thank you. So this is the Electrify Asia AMA. So first off, I've got to give you a bit of a context about what Electrify is supposed to do, what we're doing with the space and so on. We founded the business, right, a year ago, back in March 2017. And what we did back then, right, was to create a marketplace for electricity. And it was a big deal for Singapore. We're the first marketplace for electricity in Singapore. And what we did was because Singapore had liberalized its energy market since 2001 in stages, right? A few people know about it, and we saw there was a gap, that there wasn't enough transparency with information, people didn't know enough how to buy power, and so on and so forth. So we created a marketplace to fill this gap, right, for a liberalized market that was Singapore. And we're not the only marketplace that's liberalizing. You have a lot of countries maturing, the marketplaces are liberalizing. Some of the countries have done it many years ago. You have countries like the UK, Australia, and of Asia, even Japan's liberalized a year and a half ago. So the opportunity is large. And more countries in Asia are liberalizing as well. You've got on our very immediate horizon, you've got countries like Philippines looking to liberalize in the next 3 to 5 years. We are now talking to a number of different organizations in different countries across Southeast Asia, also discussing liberalization of the electricity markets. So what is Electrify then today? Electrify is the first electricity marketplace in Southeast Asia. We're the first to set up, and in Singapore, for example, today, we're still the only one, right? So what exactly did we do in this marketplace? When we came into the market, what we did first was to digitize all electricity contracts, which was very significant. Mind you, the market in Singapore, for example, had been liberalized for the last 15, 16 years, right? And what we did was we actually took all these paper contracts and migrated them onto the web. We took them all and we digitized everything. Contracts that used to take days to fill because of payment collections, form fills, signing signatures, and all that, they now get transacted on our platform in under 10 minutes. And that's the first thing that we did. Now, after we did that, what we realized was that we wanted to up the game. What was the next technological milestone to hit? And we started looking at different technologies to reduce the cost of transaction. And we realized blockchain was the way to go, right? To actually be able to take these electricity contracts and move them onto smart contracts and write them onto the blockchain itself. So, oh, that didn't work out well. Let's try that again. So what we did was to take all the digital contracts that we had to date. We've got agreements with retailers. We're actually working with one of the largest generation companies in Singapore right now to develop smart contracts for electricity. We took the platform that we had, and what we're doing now is take all these contracts and converting them from natural language down to smart contracts for processing onto the blockchain. Now, there are of course lots of benefits when we start doing things like this. First things, of course, all of you very familiar what blockchain can do for transactional purposes, right? We look at reductions in costs and times required for reconciliation and payment settlements. And what that does for the end user and even for the retailers, it drives down the cost to deliver and serve every single client. We saw this was a huge need because in today's day and age, there are costs to serve every single electricity contract and every electricity account. For a commercial account, there's enough fat, so those costs can be hidden and can be absorbed. But when domestic accounts get signed up, so in the Singapore context, by the end of this year, every one of you who live here, you'll be able to sign electricity contracts from a private retailer. You don't have to buy and pay for your power with SP anymore. You can choose a private retailer, right? That's referred to in Singapore as the open electricity market, the OEM. But in that situation, a domestic account, your cost to serve is high. And what's the net result? The result then is that you might not get the full savings or the full benefits or value that you should be getting. So what we're doing by moving everything to a smart contract to reduce all these costs to serve, which, like I said, will lead to more savings for end users and hopefully even slightly better margins for the retailers as well. Now, all of this is what we've been doing. Like I said, our business has been around for about a year, right? To date, we've already got agreements with one of the largest gencos in Singapore, the top 3 guys in Singapore, to develop smart contracts, right, for the retail electricity market. We've also got MOU signed. We're making the announcements later on after the ICO has closed for various reasons, because there's an embargo. We have MOU signed to develop the same platform for the Japanese market as well. We signed it with one of the largest power players over there. And of course, we're being considered with the Energy Authority over here to enter into their development sandbox. So that's what we've done as a business, and that's what we're doing. So all that I've described right up to this point is pretty standard. It is the electricity marketplace itself, what we've dubbed the Marketplace 2.0. What we're looking to develop as part of the ICO as well, other than just smart electricity contracts, is Synergy. Now, Synergy is a peer-to-peer energy trading platform, right? And it happens and occurs across a main grid, a city-wide grid. And that's really significant. Over the last half year or so, you've seen a lot of energy blockchain projects, ICOs. They've talked about peer-to-peer energy trading. So I reckon you're quite familiar with that word. It's been bounced around a lot. But there is a problem with that. In peer-to-peer energy trading, someone produces power, and the peer, not necessarily another company or the grid itself, but another consumer is able to buy and transact and settle between a producer and a consumer. So that's basically what it is. But the problem is, most of these projects talk about peer-to-peer energy trading on a microgrid. So what's a microgrid? So a microgrid, we've got to explain this a little bit, right? A microgrid is really, really easy in concept. Assuming, say, the 4 of us, 3 guys out front and plus me, the 4 of us, all live in a small little village, a little cul-de-sac, for example, right? So you've got solar, you've got wind, and maybe you've got, I don't know, a biomass generator or some kind, right? Generating power. And we can literally run cables between each other. I can choose to buy power from any one of them, and I can settle the cost of power, the price of that power I'm buying from any one of you, because we're physically in close proximity and we're connected to each other. I could pay you in chicken wings, I could mow your lawn, and you actually pay you in dollars and cents. So I can tokenize that payment, and we can settle between ourselves and we can agree, right? So this is a microgrid. That's easy to do. We're in the same little town, same little village, or same apartment building. That's simple to execute. But what's really tough is that we don't all live on microgrids. We all live in cities. And we talk about a city-wide implementation of this solution, right? It's near impossible. The costs are astronomical. In the Singapore context, right? Let's say someone over there, the gentleman in purple, right? He lives in Tuas. If I lived in Pasir Ris, for example, I can't run a cable from my home all the way to his solar panels in Tuas. That's not feasible because we're all plugged in to a national grid. I can't run that cable to him because the costs are astronomical. But we're plugged into that national grid, just like this building is plugged into the national grid. All your homes are plugged into a national grid. But therein lies another problem. With a national grid, you have a central intermediary. How do you then settle payment from me to him while dealing with the guy in the middle? And that's what Synergy is looking to do. Our solution layers itself on of a central grid. And what it allows the end user or the producer to do is to settle payments between each other. So whereas someone could have a solar farm somewhere on the suburbs, for instance, in a park in the heart of town, consume this power and transparently transact and settle for that payment. The issue in this isn't delivery of the power. Most people who aren't in the industry or in the energy industry think that the power flows directly, but it doesn't. It comes from the grid. As he goes into the grid, the key and the problem really is in the settlement process, the peer-to-peer energy trading settlement. That is the headache, and that's a big conundrum that we've created and solved in Synergy. Now, the whole idea of peer-to-peer energy trading, right? You think that it was a brand new thing that these recent companies invented, but it's not. Peer-to-peer energy trading has occurred for decades, many years. And what's happened is big utility companies have been trading power between themselves for the longest time. But they've got large teams of lawyers, auditors, accountants, consultants, you name it. So you got all these teams executing the contracts on their behalf. Now, what we're looking to do is to take these same processes. Mind you, Julius and myself, we came from the industry. We understand how these processes work. We're going to take these same processes, bring them down to a level of a smart contract, and have them execute between end users. Now, what that means is this. We're basically essentially taking all these processes and democratizing them. What we're looking to do is, in a way, think of it as we're tokenizing energy. We're allowing end users to be able to use these same processes, these same mechanisms, and execute between themselves transparently. Now, anyone looking to use the Electrify platform could very simply run an app on their mobile device, and they can literally choose, just like it was e-commerce, pick and choose which energy provider they wanted. It all gets settled and taken care of in the back end. They can choose which power source they want to buy it from, or they can even choose a conventional energy source like one of the retailers, because we've already got an existing marketplace. We've already got the agreements and the contracts lined up with all the conventional retailers, and we can execute all of these simultaneously. Now, the big question about the ICO then is where does the token come in? What does your token do in this space? What we've designed is a system whereby the end user is able to settle in a local currency against the power he's consuming, and the elect token, the ELEC, the elect token, will be used to settle transaction fees. Think of it like your credit cards. Think of it like your interchange. So on the back, while you're carrying out all your transactions, you're still paying the merchant. But there is what's called the MDR, the merchant discount rate. That transaction fee gets taken by the system to carry out these transactions, allow these transactions to occur. That's what the elect token will be for. And this token, of course, will be carried out across the entire ecosystem, regardless of country, wherever we're operating in. So that is the use of the elect token. Now, first phase that we're operating in, we're in Singapore right now. Like I said, we've been in business for almost a year. We've got good transactional volumes, and we're now looking to grow the business. The next phase we're looking into is Japan. We've got strong interest there from a big power company. In fact, we came back from Japan, a week ago? Yeah? And there's a lot of interest from the market as well. Japan itself liberalized a year and a half ago. Where Singapore's got 26, 27 retailers, Japan's got over 400. That is the potential for business for us. We've also been talking to a number of different parties across Asia as well. Because after Japan, we're looking at growth in different countries also. Some of the other countries out of Southeast Asia, definitely Philippines. We're looking at Thailand. There's opportunity there as well. And also even exploring to places like Myanmar. So this is the opportunity for Electrify. It is essentially geography agnostic. Everywhere we get into, we'll work with the local regulators to get the whole system, platform executed and running. And all this, of course, like I said, executes across a citywide grid. So one thing that's got a lot of attention really is basically who are the advisors advising us on the ICO. We've got the likes of Jun Hasegawa from OMG and Wendell Davis. Wendell's been advising on a whole number of really key Ethereum projects as well. So this has come up quite a lot. We'll address it in the Q&A later on. What exactly is Electrify space? And how does it work with the OMG network? And how does it integrate with Ethereum? And tonight as well, we're going to announce one more advisor joining us. I think he's in the crowd somewhere. It's Kelvin So, all-round futurist, inventor, great comms guy, and a friend of the Ethereum network. Kelvin, are you right here? Okay, nobody heard that, right? So Kelvin's coming on board as one of our key advisors as well. Great branding and communications background, regional expertise, fantastic. So these are the key advisors we've got running on our team right now, right? So the next big question really is, what is the space of Electrify? What kind of network are you running on? we will be building our solution on top of OMG's own scalability solution, which is of course being developed against the Plasma protocol, right? Let me hit that for Plasma. Now, if you're aware of what's happening in blockchain development, you're aware of what happened with Lightning, you're aware of what's happening with all the scalability issues and so on. So what's happening really is Plasma is basically the next phase in what's going to happen with Ethereum. We're talking about very, very high number of transactions per second, high number of TPS, with very, very low costs. So that's what we're looking to do and how we're executing it on the blockchain, right? And basically that's the summary of what Electrify as a business is about, what we're looking to do, and we're looking to achieve. If there are any questions, please leave them for a little on. We're going to do Q&A, then we'll happily answer all of your questions for you. Right? Thank you.
Before we start the Q&A session, just note, in the Q&A, actually taking the questions that have been submitted on the Pigeonhole platform. So please continue to send us your questions and even your observations on that platform so that I can get Julius and Martin to answer them. And then after which I will open the Q&A to the floor. So save your burning questions after Martin's presentation for later. So I actually heard about the team. So I believe that people are actually very excited that Jun Hasegawa has agreed to come on board as your advisor. I'd like to know more about Electrify's affiliation with Omisego, and actually how do you see this relationship developing in future?
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Julius. So we actually got to know Hasegawa through a common friend. It's working. Yeah, mic's working, okay. So we got to know him a couple of months ago and started to develop a relationship. We spent a lot of time talking. Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to Jun as well as his team. Get to know a lot more about his project, his different products, the timeline of his product launch as well. So I think through that we developed a relationship. Also the relevance of how we see both of our organizations and projects fitting together as well. Yep.
So as Julius said, we're introduced by a mutual friend, and the relationships, he's been incredibly generous in opening up access to what OMG does and the kind of solutions that OMG is actually developing for the Ethereum Foundation and for Ethereum itself. The scalability solution, I think some of you may have seen one of the interviews that we did online with another reviewer, and I think the way I described it was that it was gobsmacking, really. Just seeing what OMG was able to deliver in terms of performance and throughput was really, really quite incredible. And we've been very, very lucky and very grateful that we're actually able to include and able to build our solution on top of what they're doing as well.
There's also a question with regards to the ICO. So I think many people are actually quite curious about the community airdrop. And Matthew wants to know which community are you referring to, and why do you guys decide to do an airdrop?
Okay, so I'll take this question. I think it's, as Sarah put it, it's a very commonly brought up question. So I guess it's the first time we are going to announce it publicly. We are going to do an airdrop to 3 different communities. So the first one is our own community. So everyone who owns elect tokens, as well as the OMG and Ethereum community. Yeah. So we announce more details in a couple of weeks' time. And I guess that should satisfy all your questions about what percentages, what kind of block height, when do we determine the parameters of the airdrop. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll add a bit to that as well. One thing that we've emphasized a great deal about is that Electrify wants to be an inclusive project. We've acted in that fashion across everything we've done to date. And we've had it pointed out to us on our own Telegram chats where the community is very, very active as well. And what we do in terms of inclusion has been very basically this, right? For instance, during the pre-sale and the main sale itself, we made sure there was a significant allocation that's open to the crowd. We did not pay out any bounties or any bonuses to any of the investors that came in on any of the tiers. We want to be very, very inclusive and very fair to everybody participating. So that funneled itself into the airdrop. And what the airdrop is supposed to do is basically to incentivize and to include more people to hold the token and to use the token and that's part of our community building spirit, so to speak. It's something we learned from Omise Go as well. If you recall, OMG themselves did an airdrop to the Ethereum community, and we're adopting that same model as well. We're doing airdrop of our token to, as Julia said, 3 different groups. One, our own community of Electrify, the Electrify tribe, as we call them. We also will be airdropping to the OMG community as well, and also to Ethereum also. So that's what we're looking to do. We want inclusion, and we want to be more involved and have more people participating in our project. Yeah.
So Martin, just now in your presentation, you did mention plans to actually like go into Japan, and there's opportunity in like Thailand as well. So what kinds of challenges do you and Julius foresee when trying to enter other markets, and how do you think this might affect the platform usage?
So I think that goes back to a little to how we started the business. You got to realize when we started Electrify almost a year ago, there was no such thing in Singapore. There was no such thing as a marketplace. Everybody said, well, you know, the framework doesn't allow you to do it. The regulation won't allow it to happen, and so on and so forth. And there were a multitude of challenges with which we've actually overcome most, if not all of them. And we expect the same kind of challenges when we entered every single market. Electricity being a commodity is the same everywhere. But the regulations and the pricing, the model, the distribution, all these mechanisms are different everywhere we go. One thing that really, really well is that we've been able to pivot. We react and we have foresight, we plan. And of course, every market we get into, we find allies. Which is why, for example, when we talk about Japan, for instance, it's actually a very, very big deal for us that we get some serious muscle from a party on the ground, able to help us open some doors. We, of course, will work with the regulators in each country to develop models that will be applicable in country. We are inclusive, as we said.
Yes, but so there's also very likely that actually a large portion of the user base will actually be people who are not familiar with the way like energy systems work, so they're not your regulators. So in terms of like for your user base, how would you spur adoption actually amongst a non-technical community?
So I think this would vary across different countries. So for example, in Singapore, most people living in Singapore are not so familiar with energy market liberalization. And I think the approach that we take in each country is slightly different depending on the maturity of the market. In Europe, for example, or even in Japan, a lot that you actually have a choice. You can choose your power provider based on different prices, different energy sources, for example. So I think the approach that we take in every market is going to be slightly different. We together with our partners, will have to sort of localized in the market. So that means that we go and understand the people, understand their mindsets, what makes them switch, or what makes them tick in that sense. Yeah.
Very true. Every market we get into has different levels of development, different levels of maturity. And interestingly enough, it's got to do in part with the amount of time the market's been liberalized, but also has a great deal to do with the level of education, not how educated the market is per se, but how well informed they are about liberalization of electricity. One thing, for example, we found in our business in the Singapore context has been that because of the way the market's structured here, despite the fact that we've been liberalized since 2000, 2001, a lot of consumers are still not aware. And I reckon everybody in this room, I'll bet most of you live here, you're local. I'll bet most of you didn't realize that we have OEM, or open electricity market, occurring within this year itself, right? Can we just very quickly, you have a show of hands, how many people knew or know that by the end of the year, you can buy your domestic electricity from a private retailer? Can you just have a quick show of hands? How many of you know about it? Yeah, that's about maybe a third. Yeah, so that's what we mean. So one thing we realize is that education is going to be a very, very big thing in every market we go into. We'll have to inform. And that's something that we've done pretty decently in the Singapore context. Yeah.
Okay, I think now we will open the floor. So we'll take some questions from the audience themselves. I think we have someone with the mic standing around. So if you guys have questions, please take the mic. And please introduce yourself and try to keep your questions short as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
The mic is in the orange cube, so we can throw it at somebody else, pass it to a friend. Yep.
Just don't aim at the camera.
Yeah, please. Yeah, it's kind of expensive. Yep. So anybody, we want any questions, stuff you want to ask, you know? Come on, I see you guys elbowing each other and, you know, don't be shy. Yes, please. David, would you mind? Oh, whoa, careful, careful. He has to work on his aim. Yeah, we'll do an ICO for that.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hey, Martin. Hey, Julius. I'm Ben here.
Hi, Ben.
Question, who were the other competitors at the ICO Oscar whom you guys beat out? And could you describe, like, briefly what kind of projects they were pitching?
I will try my best from my memory. So I recall, I think, 3 projects. First one was about a company in Slovenia or Slovakia. Slovenia. I think they're trying to tokenize water supply from a certain lake that they were quite close to.
Lake Baikal.
Yeah, Lake Baikal. So that's one of them. The other one was about I think tokenizing the rights to music, or was it art?
I think it was music.
Yeah. Music. Yeah. So that's more like copyrights and how you can secure everything on a blockchain. Third one is, if I don't recall wrongly, it's a dating app. So it's something about having some kind of provenance trail on who you have dated and who you haven't. Yeah. So I think this. I mean, there were about 10 to 20 other content.
No, there were 12 projects in total.
12 projects. Yeah. A couple of others. I can't remember the names, but some of them were pretty good. Yeah.
Thanks.
A couple of guys stood up. There were 12 projects, and we were the only Singaporean project up there. The others were from across Europe, a number from Russia, a number from actually a lot of European projects. But yeah. Yep, please.
How do you guys compare yourselves to Power Ledger or WePower? Is there enough of your kind of blockchain companies in this space? Is there enough space in the ecosystem?
Okay, so we get asked that a lot. Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, so again, the comparison is inevitable. We're an energy company, energy on blockchain, and there aren't all that many energy companies on blockchain right now. Right, they're a good handful. So how do we differ? These other projects, the WePowers, Power Ledgers, I mean, they're great projects. Great projects. When we were developing our ICO plans, we actually looked to them as models, trying to understand what they were doing in the energy space, how were they relevant, how were we relevant, and how we could differentiate. So Power Ledger, great project, Australian. They got a lot of solutions putting on the blockchain. One thing we saw though, and we hope we're not wrong, was the whole peer-to-peer sharing system that was built very much on microgrids. And that's where we, from energy space ourselves, we looked at it and we said, well, it's great. It's great to be able to share energy among your buddies or in a resort with 50 different people or whatever. But what if I lived in a city? What if I lived in Singapore, in Tokyo, or in Manila or Shanghai? How would I share power that way? And we looked around, we realized that there weren't solutions like that. If you look back historically in the last 2-3 years, for example, as far back as Manhattan microgrid project, for instance, right? LO3, great project, fantastic. And we really look up to what these guys did. They opened the floodgates for everybody else to practice and so on, right? But again, they're microgrid solutions. And we realized that it's got to be bigger, it's got to be more significant, we've got to include more people into it. So we start developing a different solution at a different scale. WePower, also a very interesting project talking about renewable energy. And that's where we differ. We're not saying that renewables are bad. In fact, they're great. But we think that the focus on renewables can sometimes be misleading, because the bigger issue at hand isn't just renewables, it's about the use of energy across a national grid. We've all got to be aware, and the problem is that most of us aren't aware. We don't think twice, 3 times, or even once. We turn on the light, flip it on, where's it coming from, who am I buying it from, can I get it cheaper, can I get it better, can I buy local? We don't think about these things. And we have to get that conversation going. Once you start thinking about them, then the next progression really will be, should renewables come into play? And for all these conversations to be had, you have to have a choice. And that's what Electrify gives you. It gives you choice. Through the marketplace, through the peer-to-peer energy trading platform, you have a choice. You can choose who you want to buy power from. That's what we're looking to build. And that's how we're different from the others.
Just add on a little bit to what Martin has shared. I think three different projects, namely WePower, Power Ledger, and ourselves, Electrify Asia, we have a bit of a different focus area. So, for example, I think Power Ledger's focus is a bit more on microgrids, as Martin put it. They also have pretty interesting initiatives on how people could get together and create a project. For example, for us, I think we are focused on cities, so solutions that work in a developed city or developed power grid. A couple of these solutions were things that we're thinking about for the past couple of years. I mean, we spent a couple of years in the industry and we recognize the pain points, we recognize the problems in developed cities. So, for example, one of the things that we were trying to solve was was this gap in the market whereby there are a lot of companies or consumers in the middle of the city that want to buy clean energy, but don't have access to a rooftop space or maybe a piece of land to install wind turbines, for example. Whereas further out in the suburbs, say in Tuas area in Singapore, or even in Sembawang or in Changi area, there's a lot of space. The land there is relatively more affordable, but these people, they have a lot of rooftop space, but they have a lot of surplus solar power as well. So the problem that we see in the market, in a very common case, is that these people, they install solar panels, and in the daytime, they export power into the grid. And because sometimes it's too complicated or too expensive to recover revenues from these systems, let alone trade it. And the thing about exporting power into the main city grid is that you get a volatile revenue per kilowatt hour. So the price per kilowatt hour, you're essentially a price taker. And that's not great for anyone who is trying to finance or build or develop a solar project. So we are trying to matchmake both the consumer and the producer, so they both get more certainty in terms of pricing and energy consumption. And one more thing, last thing to add is that while we are firm believers in renewable energy projects, I myself started my career as a solar researcher in the local university. So we are really, really passionate about it. But one thing that we cannot ignore is that it's close to impossible to have entire city powered by renewables today, given the nature of it, the variability of solar power, the variability and the predictability of wind power as well. So it's close to impossible to do that unless you have a hugely connected grid like the European grid. But even with that, one country can claim that they are fully powered by renewables, but that's because they have a backup power generator, say in another country. So anything happens to solar power or their hydropower, they have a backup from another country. Whereas in most cities, Singapore, Tokyo, and even some of the Australian cities, we don't have that luxury. So we recognize that complementary mix of different sources is essential for grid stability. And I think that will be a trend for the next at least 5 to 10 years until your battery prices become a lot more meaningful to distributed generation projects.
Thanks, Julius. Any more questions from the audience? The lady at the back. Yeah.
So how do I throw it?
Who's got the mic right now? The orange cube? Yeah. Excellent, good catch.
Hey, so I have a question.
Could you tell us your name, please?
Oh, I'm Valerie.
Hi, Valerie.
Yeah, so my question, I hope it's not a dumb one. Basically, I'm curious to know, so people can buy the energy online using the app or your website, right? But how exactly does the energy that they bought then get transferred to their house? Like, I mean, I assume they're being connected to like the national grid. So how do they get the retailers one to their house? Yeah.
Can I take this? Yeah.
And are there any challenges in doing that?
Okay, so that's one key thing, and it comes down to the understanding of how an energy grid works, right? So take this building, for example, right? No one delivers power to this building per se. Nobody came with a bunch of batteries, plugged it in, and turned on the lights, and hey, power just came today. What happens is, like in the Singapore context, right? In this particular liberalized market, There are generators. There are 7 generation companies. They're all private. In fact, 4 of them are foreign-owned, right? The grid itself is still owned by the government, but that's a physical asset, the grid itself. So SP manages GLC, basically a GLC, government-linked corporation, GLC owns and manages that physical infrastructure that delivers the power from the generator to this building, right? So how it works is this: all the power that you're consuming is basically post-paid. You use it, someone reads a meter and says, well, you got to pay that bill. That's how much it is. So the physical delivery of that power, right, is still existing, regardless of who you're buying the power from, because you're taking it from the grid. What you're getting and what you're buying, in terms of your understanding, when you buy from, say, a private retailer, to date, there are 27 private retailers in Singapore right now. If you're buying from them, what that means really is that you're buying a contract to settle the payment of that energy. That's what's happening. So you're not buying the physical power per se, you're buying the contract to settle. And that's actually very, very significant, because the big question that we get asked a lot in our marketplace, for example, we have clients, customers asking us, you know, if I sign from SP and I sign with somebody else, right, will I get disruption? Am I going to get a blackout? What if there are brownouts? I run a data center, I've got a crypto farm, you know, no downtime, you know. And the key really is, there is no downtime. Nothing physically changes. The infrastructure is the infrastructure. It stays there. It's kind of like, for example, on one level, think about it, it's like signing up with a separate internet service provider, right? The physical backbone that's running and powering well, not powering, but the fundamental backbone that's supporting the internet in Singapore right now is still Singtel property. Everybody else buys bandwidth on top of that Singtel backbone. The StarHub, M1, even Singtel services that sells to you at retail, they buy bandwidth off that same backbone. And that's basically what's happening with energy as well. You're buying a contract to settle, right? So Electrify doesn't physically deliver power to your home. That's not how the business works. And that's not how the market works.
Yeah, so I'll just add on very quickly to that. So it's because electricity is delivered in a very different way from, say, your other tangible commodities. It's a little bit difficult to understand how exactly it works, but it's very commonly this structure of the market, wholesale power markets, is available in almost all developed countries. So your US, Canada, UK, and all the other developed countries, they all operate on a similar model. So how do companies or generators, say that? How do they claim that they actually provide power to you? That actually lies in the way that they structure the contract for difference on the wholesale power market. So I won't go into too much detail, but essentially a simple way of looking at it is that if I own a power generation company, I inject power to the grid at, say, X dollars, and I supply to you at, say, X plus $1. So it doesn't matter where X is. And that's how the CFD actually cancels out the volatility on both the generators and the retailers. And yeah, I mean, if you have more questions, you can ask me separately right after this. I'll be here. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that gentleman wanted to ask a question after Valerie. So let's have him go first. And then we'll do him and yours.
Hi, my name is Felix.
Hi, Felix.
And it connects a little bit to the question Valerie just asked. Maybe it's also a topic for later, but I've seen in your app that you can choose a little power provider, kind of solar energy stuff. And I mean, what happens if he or she doesn't deliver that much power to the grid? Not that it gets unstable, I understood that. But I mean, at some point, the power provider has to deliver energy to the net, right? And if he or she delivers just 10 kilowatts of power and the consumers, I don't know, demand 1,000, what happens to the difference? Like, from where do I get that? Or is that a smart contract that switches just to the next retailer?
Okay, so how it works is like this. Let's say you want to consume, say, 400 kilowatt hours, because that's the national average in Singapore. And if you sign up with a certain retailer, technically they will provide you with as much power as you require. So what happens is your household will consume, say, 400, or let's say even if you overshoot it and it goes to 800, you consume 800, and your retailer will bill you for 800. And on the back end, the retailer's back end, they will be built by the power grid or the wholesale market for the 800 that you have consumed. So that's where the risk management aspect comes into play for retailers. So if they project that everyone is going to use 400 and they do a hedge on a futures market or CFD or whichever other instrument for 400, and say everyone happens to use 800 this month because of maybe a hot weather spell or something, then this retailer is they are known to be, or rather we will say that they are under hedged. So that means that they are left with a lot of exposure, and if the prices move against them, then they may get into some financial trouble. But the Singapore government, the EMA, is taking very, very active steps in ensuring that all retailers and all energy providers in Singapore have sufficient risk coverage as well. So they monitor all their exposures to make sure that they don't take unnecessary risk. Yeah. And I mean, the other thing to note is that when a retailer has many consumers, then statistically it evens out all the volatility and spikes in consumption. Yeah.
But that also means that small retailers had to be backed up by the government, right? Like also private retailers, if I wanted to feed electricity into the net with my solar panels, then am I automatically backed up by the government, or how does it work then?
Yeah, so you're not really, none of the retailers are backed up by the government in that sense. None of them, I think none of them are guaranteed by the government. But the government, what they do is they provide guidelines. They also monitor the retailers to ensure that they keep within the risk parameters. Yeah.
Are we good? Okay.
Yeah. You had a question.
Thorsten, yep.
Yeah.
Hi guys, just stepping away a bit from the technical, but a question about the retailers. It's great to see that you've had some positive response. So I just wanted to know what is kind of the feedback from the retailers, because of course you're giving them access to the market, and kind of what are the benefits that you're bringing to them from the business side? Yeah.
So what we bring to the market has been this. Like I said, the first thing that we did for this market was actually move all the physical contracts. It used to take days, if not weeks, to close off a contract. And we actually moved into the digital space itself. So one of the first things we did to enable that platform to occur, we developed some of our own IP. We created a pricing engine itself. So we know pricing really, really well, how prices are determined. So the dynamic pricing engine was the first of its kind. And that actually helped us a great deal when we presented to the Japanese power company, for example. We looked at it, the feedback was that they'd never seen this kind of a thing in Japan. So that helped us get further and get more traction for the Japanese market, and hope we can apply this pricing engine for that market. What else we did for the retailers in Singapore was to actually develop multiple platforms for engaging customers. For instance, at a very low level of consumption, we created a very e-commerce styled engagement. So customers come pick and choose which power plan they wanted to buy based on pricing, for example, or any other kind of parameter. Like they wanted green energy only, they wanted carbon offset, they could pick and choose. And there was an e-commerce component on the back. There was a payment gateway that we worked with. In fact, now we work with a couple of the more prominent payment gateways in the world. Some of the really big guys, for example, and that's been very fortunate for us. Another platform that we built very quickly was a quotation engine. Given the fact that we actually work with a number of retailers, we reckon we're probably, if not, apart from the regulator, we're probably only guys that have a clear visibility on nearly everybody's active contracts, so all the salient points. From that, we built a database, a matrix, if you will, from which we actually generate key quotation points for a customer to choose. So customer may say, look, I want 5 quotations. No problem. We'll get you a document with 5 quotations anonymized, and customers get to pick and choose with all the salient contract points built in, everything from penalties, deposits, payment terms, and so on and so forth. And of course, for large volume consumers, we're making some really good headway. We're running a tender platform. We're automating that a great deal as well. So retailers basically receive a tender notice from us, from the very large consumers who actually use us. So we do everything from contract assessment right down to load profiling for customers and so on, generating all this. And our model is really, really simple. The customer doesn't pay the bill. The customers get all this service for free. We advise them on the power consumption, we help them run the tender, we do a tender assessment, and they don't pay anything. The winning retailer pays us. right? So we manage all of these processes, we change the game, and what we do for retailers essentially is we help them go to market faster, more efficiently, and hopefully acquire customers a lot more fluidly, right, than they would have if they did all this by themselves. And that's what we see our role is as a marketplace. We have that responsibility for both customers and to retailers. We've got a question in the back, I think one of the last ones.
Can I go first?
Sure, we just pick one.
We'll be with you in a sec. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Li Shengjie. I have a question. Maybe it's a very fundamental question. Is why do we need the token? Okay, this is the first question. Why do we need a token if we have a smart contract? The other thing is the pricing of the token. Do you see that the pricing of the token will be like very volatile? Then what is the fundamental value of the token?
Yeah, so token usage model, one of the use cases was described by Martin on his slide earlier. So first one is to pay for transactional fees. So that's the first one. There are a few other uses of the token that are stated in our technical white paper. You can check it out on our website. So for example, because in a peer-to-peer model, there's actually a lot of there's a bit of vulnerability to dishonest actors, for example. So what we are trying to create also is something that we learned from the whole POS system, and that we want the energy providers, which comprises the producers as well as the retailers, to stick some tokens that scales proportionally to how much power they plan to supply to customers. So this disincentivizes some kind of dishonest behavior or tampering of the system, and we hope to keep the whole community honest and transparent in that manner. Yeah. So the tokens also used for a loyalty point system, and through, I mean, the philosophy behind the token model design is to encourage ownership, long-term ownership and usage of the platform. So that's how we design the different rules that are in the system. Yeah. And your second question, sorry.
The second question is on the pricing of the token.
Yeah.
So the token is going to be traded just like Bitcoin, or I'm not sure how this works.
Yeah. So I think we cannot comment on any kind of value associated with the token and any trading activities as well.
Okay, so very simply, let me just jump in very quickly. So we realize that the token's value will fluctuate given whatever else happens outside of our ecosystem, supply and demand, and so on, right? What we are able to do on the internal side, we will be developing a very fair system whereby the price of token, or rather the price of that transactional fee, can be moderated and adjusted. What we're looking at is a transactional fee less than 1% of the value of transaction that goes across. That less than 1%, that fee that gets paid, will be paid in our token. So we can adjust that number. It's dynamic, depending on what's happening out there in the market. So that's what we're looking to do. So this token allows us to carry out these transactional fees, gets paid to the company and to the business itself.
Are you saying that the token is only going to be used for paying transaction fees, or it can be used to pay electricity?
No, it will not be used to pay electricity. So just explain it very, very quickly. A number of different ICOs, specifically one out of the US, very recently, they're due to launch their POC, I think, by this quarter or the next quarter, right? These guys called Grid Plus, another great project. So they describe a system whereby the token is equivalent to a certain number of electricity units. If I remember, it was like 500 kilowatt hours, right? One token. What we feel that we can't associate that kind of value to our token only because, as I said earlier on, energy being a commodity is the same everywhere you go. However, in every country, every jurisdiction, every geography, the price of that power is very, very different, right? Because it's not just electricity you're talking about, it's also the cost of distribution, cost of generation, cost of the hardware needed to generate the power. So all these affect the price of energy. So it'd be quite conceited of us if we said, look, our token pays for everything and covers everything. That's not the model we're designing. We're designing a model that will work across all geographies, but the transactional fee is what we can control. The price of the energy per unit is something we can't control because that will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, from country to country. Right? Yeah.
Just a quick one to add on to that. because we are using the Omesigo's decentralized exchange and wallet, so this actually is essentially a value exchange wallet, and that actually allows you to pay in one currency and for the recipient to receive in something else. But whether we would permit users to pay for the electricity in elect tokens is something that we have yet to decide. Yeah. So I think it's a bit more of a commercial decision as well as a design user experience decision that we will announce later on. Yeah.
Thank you. I believe the gentleman.
I have the same question. Oh, great, brilliant.
Oh, okay. Do we have more questions from the audience? Okay, I think there's one question that came in from Pigeonhole, and it's also related to the token. So I think this is for Julius. So a while ago, it was said in the white paper that Electrify would actually have a dual token system. I believe that's the Electron system. And is this understanding still correct, and how does that work?
Okay, good question, and I'm glad it was brought up by the community. So we initially designed a system such that there's the elect token and the Tron token, whereby the Tron token was meant to be a base currency. So that actually, we took it out of the white paper because it appeared to be very confusing to people. A lot of people assumed that we will be doing ICO, or maybe doing 2 ICOs, or doing ICO on 2 tokens. So that became very confusing. But essentially, the Tron is essentially a digitized fiat currency. Right, so it's no different from any of your e-wallets where you can store your Sing dollars, your US dollars, or whichever country we operate in. But we have removed the name Tron. We replaced it with a digitized fiat currency. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Anything else you want to know about at all? Nobody? Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Nice catch.
Thanks. So for the retailers who need to park those elects as deposit, right? 2 questions. Who's going to decide whether they've behaved badly? Is that going to be done by smart contracts? And the second one would be, should they behave badly, are those tokens going to be burnt, or are they going to go into a fund?
Okay. So very quickly to address that, as we said earlier on, the energy space is very, very diverse. How you catch someone for cheating. So one example, right? Let's say, well, our 3 gentlemen up front again, sorry guys. Let's say all 3 of them are neighbors. All 3 of them have solar panels on the rooftop. So what we can expect though is that, for example, right, if they're all generating power at the same time, the profile for generation should be exactly the same. There shouldn't be any difference because they're all neighbors, houses next to each other, and same power profile, right? But let's assuming, first guy here, Roland. Roland wants to cheat a little, puts in an exercise bicycle right there, and it just cycles like crazy, generating more power. So his profile is different. So how we map and see the difference between the data sets. So all this happens on the server end. So that's one. So what happens if he's caught? He potentially forfeits. The model right now as it is hasn't been defined whether we're going to burn it. Likelihood we're not going to burn it. Because if you look in the white paper, for example, there is no new generation of elect tokens. So if we're going to burn this, it's going to be really tough on the whole economy itself to destroy the currency. What we'll most likely do is actually put it into a fund in the treasury, because in the white paper we describe also that there will be a portion allocated to reward good behavior or long-term behavior for loyalty, for example. So very likely this is what the economy will be designed to do, to take from the bad actors and to reward the good actors.
Thanks, Martin. Anyone from the audience have more questions? Oh,
excellent. Gentleman in the corner.
Yeah, Dan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I understand that you're oversubscribed now with your crowd sale. So if you want to buy in, what's the next opportunity to buy in?
Okay, so good thing you brought it up. Then we can talk about it, because otherwise, you know. So what we did in the beginning, right? I think it's a bit of a history as well. When we started the project, we expected it to be a really, really hard slog, to be just hard work, begging people to just support us. But it's run away with us. So we're looking to raise 30 mil for the entire ICO. That's a hard cap. 20 mil set aside for pre-sale for the big institutional investors and so on. And 10 mil, one third of the ICO is dedicated to crowd sale. which is the masses, which is everybody looking to put in their 1 or 2 ethers and so on, because we want involvement. And we're stuck by these guidelines. We have not shifted. So and I'll just share the numbers a little bit. We'll have more full numbers. Yep, and I'll address that question as well. Also, how to get in. The pre-sale itself, we're oversubscribed by about 5 times. The crowd sale itself, because we took pledges when we did our KYC, we're oversubscribed already to the extent of about half a billion. So it's really, really crazy. The total sum we're looking at right now in terms of pledges is in excess of 500 million to date. And we're not increasing our hard cap. We're not going to get greedy and say, hey, because people want to buy in, let's go take more. That's not what Electrify is about. And we're really looking to work hard to achieve whatever success we have in future and so on. So to address your issue, we ran a whitelist, our second whitelist yesterday. We ran the first one on the 1st of Jan. We had to close it down in 10 days because we were just swamped and overwhelmed. The response was insane, so we had to close that down. So yesterday night, we did 3 days worth of announcements on our Telegram groups and on Twitter and so on. We reopened the whitelist to bring in another 10,000 people, and that got shut down by 5 a.m. because we just hit that wall like really, really quick. Was insane. We were watching all the Telegram feeds and everything else in the first half an hour. Was insane. You guys or the crowd brought down our servers like 4 times. We had to keep rebooting and rebooting. People are talking about how, oh, you know, 10,000 people, you can't take 10,000 applications. I assure you it wasn't 10,000 applications. People hitting refresh, 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 refresh. You multiply that by 10,000. and that was what brought down our servers big time. So yeah, so we've actually kind of closed right now. We do appreciate all the support though, but we're closed at pre-sale, and for now, we're closed at main sale as well. So thank you though, thank you. The support's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yep.
Yep. Anyone?
Yes, Paul. Go long, go long.
That's quite a throw.
Oh, nice.
Hi, Phil is my name. So, is Electrify a tech company? Is it a blockchain tech company? Is it something else? And how do you find actually with finding people to expand the business?
Me again? Okay, so one thing, this came up when we were asked very similar questions on some of the roadshows that we did in China and in Japan as well. Because we were in China, we explained our business. We're not a group of developers looking for a solution. We're a solution looking for development. We started as a business. We worked with off-site developers. We built our own core development team. And now we're looking to build up our team to bulk up with more blockchain-specific developers as well, which is where Omisego came in really, really strong. Jun's been incredibly helpful. But again, I'm sure you guys know also there's a huge shortage of good blockchain guys out there. So we're actually starting an initiative in Singapore and around the region as well to develop more blockchain resources also. We're going to take the lead. And that's what Electrify does. We don't sit and wait for things to happen for us. We go out there and we go get things done. So what you will see in the next couple of months is that some of the initiatives we've got, and we're rolling that out, to actually bring on more blockchain developers to help us build our vision. So are we a tech company? Are we a business? We are an energy company looking to make a difference with blockchain. And that's what we are. So we're not a bunch of blockchain devs looking for a solution and, yeah, let's go to an ICO. Yeah, no, we're not about that. We've always been very, very specific and very focused that we're an energy company. And we do want to make a big change in the ecosystem. And that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Just to close, I think there's one question. So are you guys planning to actually speak or attend any other upcoming conferences or events? Because I think the community is very keen to follow you guys.
Yeah, so we do have a couple of events lined up over the next few months. Some in different parts of Malaysia, in Vietnam as well as in Germany, yeah, and Australia as well. Yeah. So just stay tuned to our social media channels, and we announce more details over there.
Exactly. So let me just get a bit more specific. Next week we'll be in 3 cities in Australia. We'll be in Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. After that, what we've got lined up, we'll be speaking at ICS in Sarawak, in Kuching to be specific. That's a sustainable energy conference. We'll be in Berlin as well for, I think, Event Horizon. We're also going to be in Vietnam for another blockchain event as well.